Welcome back to Empire Wrestling and the inaugural edition of Look Back, where each episode we take a look back at the career of a professional wrestling star from years gone by. On this edition, we look at the wild career of the Louisiana native, Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Wahoo McDaniel was born Edward Hugh McDaniel on June 19, 1938, in somewhat of an unsung hero in the world of professional wrestling. Despite being a pillar of the NWA wrestling territories through the late 60s, 70s and 80s, his Native American gimmick and gritty wrestling style set him apart from his contemporaries. However, Wahoo's earlier life passion was professional football. McDaniel actually started his career as a professional American footballer in 1960, playing for the Houston Oilers in the American Football League, in which he was part of their inaugural title-winning AFL campaign. He then played for the Denver Broncos between 1961 and 1963. After he'd started playing as a linebacker for the New York Jets in 1964, McDaniel began wearing a custom jersey, which had the name Wahoo sewn onto the back above his jersey number 54. And whenever he made a tackle, the public address announcer would ask the crowd, "Who made that tackle?" in which the crowd would respond, "Wahoo, Wahoo, Wahoo." After 2 seasons with the Jets, McDaniel went to the Miami Dolphins in 1966, where he remained until his retirement after the 1968 season. Wahoo McDaniel had several passions amongst his love for football, one of which was the wacky world of professional wrestling. Whilst playing for the Houston Oilers, Wahoo trained with NWA Amarillo wrestling promoter Dory Funk Sr., with the goal of becoming a pro wrestler as a way to supplement his income by the time he was traded to the Denver Broncos in 1961. After roughly 4 years of wrestling training, alongside his fully fledged football career, now playing for the New York Jets in '64, McDaniel began wrestling part-time with Vince McMahon Sr.'s WWWF promotion. The role he was cast as was one of Native American descent, which I'm sure wasn't particularly hard for Wahoo to tap into, considering he already had a Native American heritage in his family. McDaniel was a Choctaw Native American. The Chickasaw are believed to have migrated into Mississippi from the west, as their oral history attests. They and the Choctaw were once aligned as one people, and migrated from the west of the Mississippi River into present-day Mississippi in prehistoric times. The Chickasaw and Choctaw split along the way due to government unrest from both tribes. There were other wrestlers attempting to play the role of Native Americans in the world of pro wrestling at the time. One of most notable examples of this was Wahoo's contemporary, Chief J. Strongbow. Strongbow, similarly to Wahoo, who was given the chief title and wore a war bonnet to the ring. In reality, Strongbow, real name Luke Joseph Scarpa, was in fact Italian-American, who much like actor Iron Eyes Cody, portrayed an Indian to stand out more, with the beliefs that presenting himself in a way that would draw more eyes to his character and increase his fear factor and intrigue amongst fans. Wahoo was granted permission to keep the Wahoo moniker, as well as a new name, the Chief. Thus, Chief Wahoo McDaniel was born. After being traded to the Miami Dolphins in 1966, McDaniel began wrestling for Eddie Graham's Championship Wrestling from Florida promotion. When his football career ended in 1969, McDaniel became a full-time wrestler. In his first year, McDaniel became involved in NWA Texas and won the NWA Texas Heavyweight Championship from Johnny Valentine on a house show in October of 1969. The Chief was officially born, and his career would skyrocket from here. He would then start feuds with the likes of Ric Flair, Johnny Valentine, and superstar Billy Graham. Along with Johnny Valentine, superstar Billy Graham was regarded as one of McDaniel's earliest and fierce bitter rivals. Between 1973 and 1974, the Chief and the Superstar would engage in numerous matches and brawls in what were considered some of the AWA's top-drawing feuds of the 1970s. Some of these bouts included Indian strap matches, as well as tag team matches which pitted McDaniel and the Crusher against Superstar and Ivan Koloff. In 1974, McDaniel came to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling to wrestle for Jim Crockett Promotions and help build up the territory as a single territory in a feud with another eternal foe from Texas, Johnny Valentine. Both Wahoo and McDaniel had traded the NWA Texas Heavyweight title from one another during late 1969 and early 1970. The feud evolved into a tag feud with McDaniel and Paul Jones taking on Johnny Valentine and Ric Flair, who Wahoo McDaniel met whilst working with the AWA. It was there in which Wahoo's career seemed to take a major shift of trajectory towards the top of the territories at the time, with his Valentine feud heating up and a clash with the Nature Boy on the horizon. McDaniel and Valentine's feud throughout the mid to late 1970s was highly popular amongst fans and critics alike due to its realism, bloodshed, and ingenuity. Both men weren't afraid to hold back either, heralded for their chop, slap, and punch exchanges. On June 29, 1975, McDaniel won the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship by defeating Johnny Valentine in Asheville, North Carolina. This would lead to a champions showdown between Wahoo and NWA icon, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, on September 20th, 1975, another huge milestone in the career of the Chief, Wahoo McDaniel. Ric Flair held the Mid-Atlantic television title for the large majority of 1975 until he was upended for the belt on August 8, 1975 by number 1 Paul Jones. It wasn't until his loss of the TV title that Flair turned his attention to Wahoo McDaniel and his Mid-Atlantic title. Until then, Ric and Wahoo had only wrestled against each other in a singles match a handful of times. The television promos for the marquee match gave the fans a real sense of magnitude of the bout. Wahoo told the interviewer, Les Thatcher, quote, "I think Ric Flair this time with his big mouth has really overloaded himself. The man wanted a title match, and I decided if he wants a title match, he deserves to put up something equally as important as this belt is to me, and that's his hair. He brags about his beautiful body and how wonderful he looks. Can you imagine on TV with that man standing here in front of all you people with his head shining, with the light shining on it? The bald eagle. That's what he'd have to call him. Well, let me tell you something, Flair. I don't think you're man enough to take this belt away from me. I fought hard to get this belt from your friend Valentine, and I tell you one thing, I'm gonna fight hard to keep it. And I know this would be the talk of the whole world if you couldn't beat me and they had to shave your head. You realize that everybody in the world would be talking about it, and you'd be the laughingstock of the world." End quote. Ric Flair would respond in turn with his own promo stating, quote, "That will never happen. You think for a moment that I would put up $1 million head of hair? I mean, $1 million head of hair? Without this hair, I would be nothing. You understand what I'm talking about. No sex life, no Cadillacs, nothing. So Wahoo McDaniel, I want you to know that in your heart, I want you to feel it in your heart. I can beat you. I know I can beat you. Any way I can. Because I want that belt. And I'm going to keep my hair, McDaniel. Mark my words." End quote. On that fateful September night in Hampton, the match between Ric and Wahoo turned into a classic bout, resulting in Flair capturing Wahoo's Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship. The result was a controversial one, with Flair seemingly loading his hand with an object, striking Wahoo before winning the match. Despite the loss, Wahoo's stock was certainly rising, even forcing a desperate Ric Flair to rely on his dirty tactics to gain a victory over him, claiming the gold as well as maintaining his iconic golden locks. Wahoo's feud with Valentine was then resumed as the two fought tooth and nail to best each other over the course of the next few years. And as they say in show business, it's time to break a leg, kid. In 1977, Johnny Valentine's son, Greg Valentine, attacked McDaniel and broke his leg in an angle to establish Greg as Johnny's successor. Valentine originally won the title on June 11, 1977, with McDaniel regaining it 2 months later. On September 7, 1977, Valentine regained the title, breaking McDaniel's leg in the process. The angle is particularly remembered fondly for a few follow-up interviews weeks later with Ric Flair and Johnny Valentine throwing change at McDaniel, with Valentine asking him if he needed a custom-made wheelchair for his fat body. Goddamn. Valentine then infuriated fans by parading around in t-shirts which read, "I broke Wahoo's leg" and "No more Wahoo," which would sow the seeds for a rematch between Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel. McDaniel's career would continue when he worked for WCW, or World Championship Wrestling's Slamboree pay-per-view event in 1993, a Legends Reunion on May 23, 1993, where he teamed with Blackjack Mulligan and Jim Brunzell and fought against Dick Murdoch, Don Morocco and Jimmy Snuka to a no contest. Typical WCW if you ask me. At the WCW Slamboree pay-per-view on May 23, 1995, 2 years later, Wahoo defeated Murdoch in what would be his last high-profile match for a major promotion. Wahoo McDaniel would then start to wind down as he worked several independent shows before ultimately retiring in 1996. McDaniel's health started to slowly deteriorate in the mid-1990s, which led to his eventual retirement in 1996. McDaniel would eventually lose both kidneys in the year 2000 as his physical condition, due to years of professional wrestling and football, started to worsen. He was awaiting a kidney transplant when he suffered a stroke and sadly passed away through complications from diabetes and kidney failure on April the 18th, 2002 in Houston, Texas. His body was cremated and his ashes reside with his daughter Nikki in Houston, Texas to this day. McDaniel was 62 at the time of his passing and achieved so much in the world of pro wrestling. Coming from another sport and transitioning his love for football into pro wrestling certainly isn't easy, far from it in fact, but Wahoo was able to make himself known in the territory era. He made an important mark on pro wrestling landscape in North America at the time, during the 60s and 70s and even early 80s, laying his foundation for other Native American wrestlers to follow in his footsteps. This includes the like of Jay and Mark Youngblood, Tatanka, and even part Powhatan Mickey James. Despite never reaching the heights of Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes, Wahoo McDaniel is still highly regarded as someone who helped build Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling to the peak of professional wrestling. He helped elevate the entire territory system. Wahoo was a worker, someone who wasn't afraid to put in the work. A true pro wrestling legend. Rest in peace, Chief. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave any recommendations below that you'd like to see in the coming episodes. I'm certainly open to people's suggestions. But as far as I'm concerned, I appreciate you all, and until the next time, Empire out.